The kidnapping of Stephanie Slater was one of the most remarkable cases in UK criminal history.
The kidnapper was Britain's most wanted man.
At its heart, a victim in mortal danger.
Every minute she must have feared for her life.
We thought that she'd be found dead somewhere.
And a ruthless abductor demanding a fortune.
Have you got the money? Who's this, please? Never mind. Have you got the money?
Who insisted on total secrecy.
If you say anything, this could result in Stephanie Slater being murdered.
It was a serious threat.
The body was found over there.
Because this was a man who had killed before.
With 2 blows to the back of the head.
He was a very evil and cruel man.
He's a psychopath. He's a cold, calculated killer.
A man who was playing a deadly game of cat and mouse.
There was every chance that the kidnapper was special forces.
The money was missing, but there was no sign of anybody.
How could one man evade 1,000 police officers?
We were convinced we were going to find another body.
Why should he keep her alive when she was the only person breathing that could help us to put him away for the rest of his life?
Have you got the money? Have you got it?
Estate agent Stephanie Slater had been kidnapped as she showed a man around a house in Birmingham. He was now demanding £175,000 for her release. He insisted that negotiations be conducted in total secrecy with no police involvement, and that Stephanie's boss, Kevin Watts, should be the courier dropping off the ransom. A huge covert police operation had swung into action, tracking Watts onto isolated Yorkshire moorland. But in dense fog, on a remote track, he had lost all contact with the surveillance team. And as he approached the drop point, he was completely on his own.
So he goes along the narrow bridleway and eventually stopped with this sign in the road that says stop, has to get out the car, put the money onto the wall, into a tray. The money will not be collected until you have left. So he's got to get in the car, get out the way. And that's it. Must be absolutely terrifying. The money was pulled down over a parapet, down to a valley below.
When officers arrived at the scene sometime later, they discovered the stop sign was actually on a bridge over a disused railway.
One of the officers went down the embankment, found the empty tray, and called it to say that the money was missing. But there was no sign of anybody.
Stand by, team. It's a drop, drop, drop.
Normally waited for a drop, 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 arrest, and it was just an interminable silence. We've lost the money, and to all intents and purposes, we've lost Stephanie Slater.
Police believe that the kidnapper was the same man who had murdered Leeds teenager Julie Dart 6 months earlier. His escape meant Stephanie's life now hung in the balance. West Midlands police were following the operation from the Birmingham headquarters and were desperately waiting for news.
We eventually received the call from the control room to tell me that the operation had been a disaster. I can't remember feeling so low in the whole of my 30-year service. And I couldn't stop thinking about this creature who had us over, and he took 175 grand and was now, in my mind at that time, about to top our only witness. Why should he keep her alive when she was the only person breathing that could help us to track him down and put him away for the rest of his life. We weren't in any mood to be judgmental. I didn't want to know about any inquisition that would follow later. This had been a real good smack in the face for everybody involved.
Then, just before 1 a.m., an extraordinary development.
I was in the commandant's room with a few other officers when the phone rang and they said, Stephanie's returned home.
Oh my God, Stephanie has just stepped through the front door.
Stephanie had been bundled out of a car just a few yards from her parents' home in Birmingham. D.I. Ellie Baker had been embedded with them for the past 8 days.
When I first saw Stephanie, she was very dishevelled. I knew everything about her, but she hadn't got a clue who I was. And Mr. and Mrs. Slater were hugging her, and Stephanie wanted to hug them. But I needed to think, police, detective, getting us best forensic, and I didn't want transfer of fibres from the Slaters onto Stephanie's clothing. Her hair was matted, her face was totally drained. She had all makeup going down her face, and her clothes just looked so slept in. She was obviously that traumatised and that petrified.
There's no other way to describe it. We were over the moon. And the incident room at Nechel's Green sort of turned in from a mortuary into a carnival atmosphere kind of place because she was back.
We were all delighted that she'd returned home. It was an elation, because up until that moment, we were convinced we were going to find another body.
But as dawn broke, police faced the realization that the most wanted man in Britain had slipped through their fingers once more.
This is where Stephanie was dropped off. In actual fact, she only lived just down the road here and around to the right, some 100, 150 yards away, that's all. And the person who dropped her off here then escaped. The biggest problem we had that evening was we did not have any surveillance on Stephanie's home. We asked for a surveillance team, a mobile surveillance team, but that application was rejected. We missed him when we should have had him. Fortunately, we had a stroke of luck when there was a witness, a man who used to live at that address behind me, who looked down just here and saw Stephanie get out of the front passenger seat of the car, blindfolded, which obviously looked suspicious. He was actually a paint sprayer by trade, so he knew his colours of vehicles and he knew it was a vermilion red, a specific vermilion red, which was a great help to us. It was a big bonus. It gave us information that would help us catch the man sooner rather than later.
"8 days ago, estate agent Stephanie Slater had been kidnapped by a man police believed was the same person who had murdered Leeds teenager Julie Dart. Now with Stephanie safely home, one of Britain's biggest ever manhunts was underway. But the first attempt by the police to apprehend the kidnapper had failed when he got away with £175,000 in ransom money. And now the press were asking difficult questions.
Are you saying the kidnapper has got away with this?
I'm not saying the kidnapper's got away with it, by no means. Out of this operation, we have learned a great deal. That now will be applied in the investigation to catch him.
We knew about the ransom run after it had all unravelled. 1,000 police officers, the biggest police operation in modern British criminal history, and it's a complete cock-up.
On that night, the kidnapper made his escape seemingly effortlessly from the combined forces of surveillance officers, covert hidden officers, police traffic officers, tracking systems, on and on it went. It's an astonishing story, and it grew and grew because he pulled off the impossible.
In Birmingham, the one person who knew more about the kidnapper than anyone else was about to face the press.
She hadn't been debriefed by the police at this point, but they had made a deal with the press that when she was back, that they would get to interview her immediately.
How have you managed to cope, Stephanie, over the last 7 days?
I don't know, really. You just sort of don't think about it and just go on and do the best you can.
It was far too soon to put her in front of the cameras. But equally, the police were very grateful back then that the embargo had held.
She told me that she thought it'd just be local news. She hadn't got a clue. It was all about her.
Now, calm it down. Calm it down. Now, be gentle, all of you.
And of course, the anticipation was huge. And when she came in, it was like a film star coming in, and was a real sense of relief throughout the room. It was a miracle to see it, to be honest, and it was very humbling and emotional.
She was given a tablet to calm herself down, but she didn't want it to be a big story. She just wanted to get in the shower, wash everything off her, go to bed in her own bed with her cat, and she just wanted everybody to leave her alone.
But Stephanie was now the best chance the police had of catching the kidnapper.
We moved her into a private hospital suite in Birmingham city centre. We were aware that she would have been a fountain of knowledge concerning the man she'd stayed with over the last 7 or 8 days.
We decided to use a new system that hadn't been used in the country before, which was called cognitive interviewing.
Cognitive interviewing would involve the painstaking, minute-by-minute retrieval of Stephanie's memories of her abduction. It brought out the horror of her ordeal.
Stephanie didn't know where she'd been taken and where she was being held. She was blindfolded for the 8 days, so we had to rely on what she could hear, what she could smell, and also what she heard spoken.
It took several days to take Stephanie's statement from her, and the evidence that was coming out from it was quite horrifying. How she'd been treated, the inhumane way. She had to go to the toilet in a bucket. But the most horrifying part was the fact that she was kept on a night in something like this. It was a wheelie bin. So she would go in feet first, her legs would be down at that end. There was a metal bar across the top, which he told her, don't pull down on it, because there's bricks on the top, and the bricks will crush you.
I remember feeling so in pain and so cold, thinking, I'm going to die in here. 25 years old, and this is how I'm going to end up. I was terrified of this person.
He strung her arms up with loops of metal, like a piece of meat. Her arms up totally, all night, so that she couldn't actually feel her arms or the rest of her body. He left her, and she just lay there with the blood draining from her arms.
He also said there was live electrics in there, so she had to touch anything, otherwise she'd get electrocuted. Absolutely horrifying. And then he would secure the lid closed.
He said, no wriggling about or screaming or shouting in there, remember? Or you'll die. But the fear, I mean, I can't reiterate enough how frightened I was.
I think it was so shocking. I'd never, ever heard any victim say anything so horrendous. You can't believe that any human could do that to another human.
And Stephanie's ordeal was even more horrific than police realized. Years later, she revealed that on her first night of captivity, her kidnapper had raped her. But despite her horrific experience, she was able to recall vast amounts of detail about where she'd been held.
Stephanie Slater, I think in my 30 years of policing, was the most reliable, knowledgeable and intelligent witness I ever dealt with, without a shadow of a doubt. She wasn't a police officer, she wasn't a professional investigator, but she certainly retained information as if she was. For example, there was a telephone being rang and she could hear it ringing out in the distance and the handset being answered. And she mentioned that whenever he left her, he would leave a radio on, and the program was always Radio 2. She was aware that the kidnapper spoke with a northern accent. There was also this as well, which was remarkable. It was a microwave. She could hear it ringing out, and with the door opening and closing again in the distance. And then one other thing she noticed from above her blindfold was that the roof of the room she was in was actually made up of wooden rafters and beams, so we could age the building a little bit. Now, each one of these on their own would be less significant, but together they were forming the picture we needed of the location where she was kept in captivity. Every minute of every day and night, she must have feared for her life. And in response, her only way was to keep appeasing the man that was the major threat to her.
She did as she was told, and that she didn't try and fight and she didn't try and argue with him. I actually think that's what saved Stephanie's life, that she was actually compliant.
I was chatting with him and making him see me as another human being rather than someone he could just lock up or kill or whatever. We'd say something and he would laugh or, you know, make a joke of something, and I'd think, yes, I'm getting on with him, yeah, and he's not going to kill me.
She was a remarkable girl. She really was. She got into him under his skin.
I mean, Julie Dart was totally different, I should imagine. She would have argued, and that was probably the difference between the two girls that resulted in Julie's death and Stephanie's survival.
Stephanie told the police that the kidnapper had returned with his £175,000 ransom after 10 p.m. He told her she was going home. Despite being blindfolded, the journey enabled Stephanie to provide more vital information.
Throughout the whole of that journey, there were various features that she recalled, such as he made mention of motorway signs. From what Stephanie had told us, we were able to work out the motorway she was brought down on by the kidnapper. We identified the distance between Stephanie's house and the very furthest point she could have travelled along that motorway, which actually came just north of Newark. Now, she'd already told us that where she was being captive, there was actually a railway line running close by because she could hear trains in the far distance.
The information Stephanie provided about her journey home and the frequency of trains passing by where she was held captive enabled the police to map an area in which they were sure she was being held, the so-called Golden Triangle.
The result of that exercise, which created that triangle, was absolutely essential to us because we had now reduced the size of the area where we knew she had been confined. And we knew, obviously, if we could find that, that would lead us to the kidnapper.
With police now convinced that the same man that kidnapped Stephanie had also killed Julie Dart, a joint task force was set up to investigate both cases. It was headed by Assistant Chief Constable Tom Cook from West Yorkshire. That prompted another extraordinary letter from the kidnapper.
So during the investigation of Julie Dart, there were a number of letters, but they all stopped, and we weren't expecting to receive any more letters. But once the two inquiries had been linked, we then astonishingly received the letter from the kidnapper of Stephanie Slater, which we knew was also the murderer of Julie Dart. So the letter begins, the facts: I, being the kidnapper of Stephanie Slater, am not the killer of Julie Dart. It is impossible that there can be any positive connection between the two cases.
He's still trying to play games, and he's now fearing that he might get arrested, starting to think about, right, I've got to distance myself from the murder. So he started to lay the ground for another person being involved.
Even now, my eyes are filled with tears. I wake up during the night, actually crying. With a little luck, Stephanie, we'll get over it shortly. Myself, I do not think I ever will. Sorry, Stephanie. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Slater. Well, anybody will be able to see the crocodile tears. This is a man who's killed. This letter is saying, I've never killed before. Stephanie knew at the time when she was released that this man had killed before, and she was very lucky to escape his evil clutches. The letter was sanctimonious claptrap from my point of view. It was apologising to the family, but there was something in him that wanted to show that everyone needed to see just how good he was.
But was the kidnapper's letter-writing habit about to be his undoing?
We weren't annoyed or upset by it at all. The more letters he sent to us, the better for us, because we got more information on him. He was giving us, every time he communicated, another piece of the jigsaw to fit in.
January 1992. A huge investigation was underway to catch a kidnapper. The man was suspected of abducting Stephanie Slater and earlier killing another woman, Julie Dart. Against all the odds, he had evaded a huge police operation to collect £175,000. Now he'd become Britain's most wanted man.
Some people, even on my team, thought it was, an ex-SAS, survival expert. And of course, this was speculated in the press. How could this one man evade 1,000 police officers?
But by now, the police knew a great deal about Britain's most wanted man and believed the media held the key.
Tom Cook decided that he didn't want to swamp the press, so he decided to focus on 4 aspects of it. The photo fit that had been taken from a witness at Turnberry Road where Stephanie had been kidnapped. The fact that the person had been seen wearing railway memorabilia.
And we added the details of the car, the Vermilion Red Metro, Austin Metro, and we had a recording of his voice.
So, what is the best way to get that to the public in a controlled way? Crimewatch.
The police plan was to get everything they had and put it on the BBC Crimewatch programme, which was a huge show back in the early 90s, a regular 12 million viewers. They would recreate, with police assistance, that month's most serious crimes and talk the viewers through any bits of evidence they felt they could make public and appeal for witnesses.
We just wanted to put enough out for the public to easily digest the information we were after. And then we played the recording of his voice.
Hello, Kevin what? Speaking. Have you got the money? Hello? Have you got the money? Who's this, please? Never mind. Have you got the money? For tomorrow? For tomorrow? Yeah. Have you got it? I'm getting it, yeah.
By the time Crimewatch had ended that night, over 13,000 calls had been received, and West Midlands Police began working through the enormous volume. Far fewer calls came in to the Julie Dart incident room in Leeds, but one stood out.
So we're in the bar, and then one of the officers came in and said, "Bob, we've had a call from a woman who says she believes it's her ex-husband."
She'd seen him at a funeral the week before. He had the red Vermilion Metro. It looked like the artist's impression. He was an absolute railway nuts. And the voice. He said that's his voice.
Have you got the money? For tomorrow? For tomorrow? Yeah. Have you got it?
The only significant thing about him, which was a bit of a negative factor, was he only had one leg.
I said, right, OK. Has he got form? He said, yeah, I think he has. I said, well, let's have a look at the photograph. So I went and looked at this photofax as it appeared coming through. And as it emerged from the machine, I could see, in particular, the heavy brows that cast a shadow of thick black hair over dark, cold eyes. And it was exactly how Stephanie Slater had described him. And that's when I said, right, we'll go down. Where does he live? Sutton-on-Trent.
Sutton-on-Trent was technically within John Plymouth's Golden Triangle and in West Midlands Police area of operation. But the West Yorkshire officers had a murderer in their sights. And within an hour, Tim Grogan and 3 other officers were knocking on the door of a man called Michael Sams.
We were greeted by Tina Sams, and we said, we're after Michael. Oh, he's at work. He's gave us the address of the work he was at, T&M Tools. Agreed he got a Vermilion Red Metro. So we said, right, we've got a lot of inquiries to do in the area. We'll come back later and see him at home. The route from Sutton to Newark is 18 minutes. Well, let me tell you that on that day, we did it in 8 minutes. An archway appears on our right. Stephanie described a right turn. This one on Salmon Yard. As we turned right in the Swan and Salmon Yard and descended the slope, I turned to say, this is like going down Wembley Way. That's how confident I was we were on the right track. As we got to the bottom of the slope, sure enough, part there was the Vermilion Red Metro. So I shouted, anybody here? And then into my view came this shambling, limping individual, really accentuating the limp, and said, can I help you? I said, from the police, yes, I've been expecting you. Sams was calm, cool, calculated. Didn't have anything to say at all. Just watching his rat-like eyes, looking at around. Looked at the beam above his head that Stephanie had described. The old phone, the microwave, the radio, tuned into Radio 2. Absolutely bang on. Her recall was astonishing.
At 11:25 a.m. today, a 50-year-old local man was arrested in Newark, Nottingham, and is being held in connection with the kidnapping of Stephanie Slater.
It was only when we got him to the Newark police station that the blood drained from his face. He was grey, slumped, and said, I kidnapped Stephanie Slater, but I didn't murder Julie Dart. When you arrest him, you kick into professional mode. But I will say that a couple of days later, I was hit with a charge of emotion when you're thinking back to what happened, that this was the guy that had been heard on the radio, on the television, most wanted man in Great Britain, and you locked him up.
Journalists began digging for background on the so-called Phantom of the Fog.
The first person I talked to said, "It's the tool fitter, it's Michael Sams, but it's ridiculous." And I said, "Well, why would it be ridiculous?" And they said, "He's only got one leg."
Nobody knew that he had only got one leg, which was sort of a bit like, you know, pulling the curtain back on The Wizard of Oz.
From this gang of military experts, the SAS-trained criminal superbrain, we have a one-legged tool fitter. The emphasis for journalists is to find out everything you possibly can about the life and times of this character. And it very quickly emerged that he was a failure in life.
Sam's hatred of the police went back years, to a conviction for motoring insurance fraud in 1978.
He didn't think that he should have gone to prison, so he had a deep resentment for the police as a result of that.
And his attitude towards the authorities worsened after he complained about a pain in his knee.
I just thought he wanted an easy time in the hospital wing. And it wasn't until his knee was really bad that they started to look at it and realised he'd got cancer. So they operated, but it was so bad they had to remove his lower limb. So, you know, he's got a lot of reasons to think that it's the police have done him wrong.
And from then on, he had got in his mind he wanted to commit this crime of kidnapping somebody and holding them to ransom.
Sams admitted abducting Stephanie, but denied knowing anything about Julie Dart's death. West Yorkshire needed evidence to convict him of her murder.
He's admitting Stephanie Slater. We're convinced it's the same man. We've got our killer. I needed time for the forensic teams to find the evidence that I knew must be there. There was a curtain hanging down, and it looked like on the bottom there was watery blood. It seeped up off the floor into the bottom of the curtain, so, you know, that went for testing. It came back as quite a rare blood group, 6.4% of the population, but it wasn't Michael Sams nor his wife's. But it was the same blood group as Julie Dart. So that's the first positive we've got. That is still not enough. I needed more.
West Midlands police were the first to interview Sams. He claimed that he'd never meant Stephanie any harm.
The day that my photofit was released, I was on the train that day, and two railway blokes were discussing it. And they said that the only mistake he ever did, he didn't kill her. And it... I just couldn't...
Put it down, Michael, please. In case I didn't come out, you said I couldn't have hurt her.
No.
Sams was charged with Stephanie's abduction. He was then transferred to Leeds to be interviewed about Julie Dart.
I sat in the back of the van purposely with Sams because I knew he couldn't keep quiet. And of course, when we're driving back, he said, "Are we going to Millgate?" And of course, throughout the letters that Sams had written to us, he referred to Millgate Police Station, which was a mistake because it was Millgarth Police Station. And this is once again one of the mistakes that our killer had made.
West Yorkshire police were given 3 days to put together a case against Sams.
We were dealing with a cold, cruel murderer, and he was interviewed on that basis.
The mistake that Julie Dart made when you had her confined was that she had tried to escape or remove that blindfold. And that is why she saw where she was, she saw you, and she had to die. Is that the truth?
No, it isn't the truth. There's no truth in that whatsoever.
The detectives confronted him with the letters they were convinced he had written.
This doesn't bring back any memories?
No.
Words will never be able to express my regret that Julie Dart had to be killed.
No.
But I did warn what would happen if anything went wrong.
No.
Doesn't at all.
Not one little bit.
We started looking at the handwritten letter, which said had been written left-handed. So he writes this piece that we'd asked him to write with his left hand. We pass it off to the handwriting expert.
And of course, one thing he did respect was experts. Right, it is your handwriting. The forensic scientist says it's your handwriting. Yes, it is my handwriting. I'll accept that now because you've proved it.
But there was one line of questioning the police wanted to pursue more than any other.
The kidnapper referred to another man that was helping him, but he explained to Stephanie that he was the nasty man, and if anything happened, if she tried to escape, that he would get her.
Well, he said, oh, I'm holding you with my mate, who is a nasty piece of work, my mate. He wouldn't like him. He kind of built up this mate to be some really bad ogre, so I became more frightened of the mate than I did of him.
The other man was now the main focus of the questioning.
Where did you meet this associate?
Refuse to answer that.
How old is he?
Refuse to answer that.
And you,
I'm refusing,
man's at
I'm
large-
refusing to name him, irrespective of what you think of me and what you do to me.
We were of the opinion that he was planning to divert any blame for the Julie Dart murder onto this unknown third party.
The one thing he didn't do was accept responsibility for the murder. It was the other man. It was always the other man.
To put Sams behind bars for murder, police needed to find out the truth about the other man. Only £20,000 of the ransom money had been recovered, but could finding the rest of it provide the final piece of the puzzle?
We needed to find the money to destroy the existence of the other man. Because if the other man existed, surely he would have found the money and he would have been spending it.
The hunt for the missing cash was on. Britain's most wanted man, Michael Sams, had been arrested. He'd admitted kidnapping Stephanie Slater, but denied that he'd also murdered teenager Julie Dart. Detectives now intended to find the ransom money and prove his guilt.
When Sams was arrested, his house was searched, and he said that the other man had taken that money and disappeared with it.
He denied ever being near the place where Julie Dart's body had been abandoned, but he did confess to train spotting at nearby Stoke Summit.
Now, this is the mecca for railway enthusiasts and train spotters, because historically the Mallard broke the steam record on this stretch of line. But why would Sams be here, train spotting, when 98% of all the trains that go through here go past the railway line at the end of his garden? So there had to be another reason. And was that reason the fact that the money was buried here? So when we looked at all the different possibilities of where he could have buried the money, this came out on top.
But finding it was a different proposition. D.S. Grogan contacted a former SAS colonel who specialised in finding arms caches in Northern Ireland. He helped map a potential search area, and there was room for one more innovative piece of thinking.
Somebody came to me and said, why don't you use ground probing radar? Now, that meant as much to me as the theory of relativity.
Peter Simpkins normally used his radar to locate underwater pipes.
OK, and we've got a good target just below the surface there. Go back.
But on the 1st of December, he and 30 members of the West Yorkshire Task Force attempted to find Sam's hidden cache.
So we went down with the ground probing radar and we set the coordinates for something the size of a big car battery. And he went up and down the field, and that's how we proceeded. For the first day, found nothing. And the second day, it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Peter set off doing runs across on this property here. Just after dinner, a shout goes up, he'd found something. And what did they find? A seed tray full of money, just 4 inches under the surface. The chances of us finding that were remote.
But the team's elation was short-lived as the phone rang in the police incident room.
It was the governor of Winson Green saying, I had Michael Sams in my office this morning saying, if you found one package, you've not found all the money, there's another one.
I still don't understand the reasoning for him ringing us, but of course, significantly, if we'd only found half of it, possibly the other man's got the other half and he's spending it. We actually hadn't moved forward.
Sam's insistence that another man was involved remained an unlikely but still possible scenario, so the DART team returned to Stoke Summit.
Our man with the ground probing radar is now heading back to Aberdeen. So we cobbled together a small team to come back the following day. We concentrated in the same area. I mean, I'd just got a metal prodder, just prodding the earth. And I said to one of the officers, just dig there. Oh, no, not there, give us it here, in here. And then I shoved it in to the soil. I felt it go through something, pulled it out, and there's a 1 gallon ice cream container on the end of the fork, full of notes. That was an absolutely fantastic moment. I knew then we had sealed the case against Michael Sams. So I just raised it up and went, Sams, you bastard, I've got you now. Great moment.
On June the 9th, 1993, Michael Sams went on trial at Nottingham Crown Court, charged with the kidnapping and imprisonment of Stephanie Slater and the murder of Julie Dart. On the 8th of July, the jury returned a guilty verdict.
He was totally unmoved. I just recall seeing those cold, dark eyes that no one will ever penetrate because he was a very evil and cruel man.
Sams was given 4 life sentences.
I think that if Sams had not been arrested, he would have come back again. Once he'd had a taste of outwitting the police, he wouldn't have resisted having another crack. And he was quite happy to kill.
It was just a disgusting human being with no moral fibre whatsoever. He murdered Julie Dart. He kept Stephanie Slater in a box for over a week. The man is inhuman.
At the end of the trial, Stephanie was free, but ultimately she was never free of what happened to her. She would tell me that she couldn't sleep. She would have horrific nightmares. She was just this damaged, broken girl.
It was the worst ordeal that I've ever witnessed, ever had to take a statement from. It still upsets me when I think about all that happened to her.
What she went through, that girl, was purgatory. And how she responded was amazing. Absolutely courageous and amazing. And she got him caught and captured because of the information she gave us.